Comfort has a cost. What appears as ease today often becomes weakness tomorrow. The Stoics understood this clearly. They did not seek a life free from difficulty. They welcomed difficulty as a training ground for virtue. To them, ease was not a sign of progress. It was often a sign of decay. Modern life is designed to remove friction. But friction is where strength is formed. Without resistance, you do not build discipline. Without hardship, you do not gain endurance. Every shortcut erodes the very qualities you need to stand firm in the face of chaos. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid the very process that shapes character. To stop being soft is to start taking life seriously. It means turning away from excuses and facing what is in front of you. The Stoic path is not about appearing strong. It is about becoming strong by training the mind to meet life directly. That strength is not inherited. It is built, and it is built through the daily application of timeless principles. This is not about desensitizing yourself or removing your ability to feel. Many channels misrepresent Stoicism as emotional coldness, but that is inaccurate. The Stoics acknowledged emotion as part of human nature. They did not see feeling as weakness. They trained themselves to prevent emotion from clouding judgment or distorting perception. The goal was not to eliminate emotion, but to govern it. Through discipline, they preserved clarity and made space for reasoned response. The Stoics were not indifferent. They practiced compassion grounded in self-control, and yet they knew compassion without strength becomes fragile, and strength without compassion becomes harsh. They sought the middle ground, a state where a man could walk through storms with steady steps, yet still feel the rain on his face. Life to them was a series of tests, and each test was an invitation to rise above the noise of the world. This video is divided into 10 chapters. Each one addresses a specific way we soften ourselves and how Stoic principles can reverse the process. The purpose is clarity. The aim is change. What you tolerate in yourself today becomes the standard you live by tomorrow. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Stop making excuses. Excuses are the earliest signal that discipline is weakening. They allow the mind to escape responsibility through justification. The Stoics saw this as the breakdown of reason. When a person rationalizes inaction, they separate intention from execution. What should be done becomes what is deferred. Over time, this pattern erodes character. Marcus Aurelius wrote repeatedly about his duty as a human being. He reminded himself each morning that he was not born for leisure, but for effort, thought, and action. Nature gave him reason as a guide and expected him to use it. When he failed to act in alignment with his nature, he saw it as a form of self-betrayal. Excuses were not a harmless defense. They were a way of stepping away from the path of virtue. And when one steps off that path, the return is never as easy as the departure. The longer you walk in the opposite direction, the heavier your feet become, and the quieter your willpower speaks. The Stoics warned that if you make peace with excuses, you will slowly make war with your own potential. Excuses often seem harmless at first. They appear in the form of a missed commitment, a small delay, or a moment of indulgence dressed in logic. But each one weakens the link between who you say you are and what you actually do. The pattern sets in gradually. The person becomes reactive instead of directed. Soon, choices are made based on mood rather than principle. A Stoic breaks this pattern with awareness and accountability. They do not wait for ideal conditions to act. They begin where they are. Epictetus taught that outcomes are not fully within our control, but responses are. That responsibility begins with rejecting the impulse to explain away weakness. Clarity requires that you name your avoidance for what it is. An excuse is not a delay in timing. It is a withdrawal from effort, and each withdrawal is a silent theft, stealing from the person you could have become. Begin tracking moments when you choose ease over effort. Notice when you shift responsibility outside yourself. Examine what you gain from delay and whether that gain is worth the cost to your integrity. Replace vague statements like, "I'll try," or "maybe later" with direct action. Keep your word to yourself without exception. Discipline strengthens through repetition and structure. It does not rely on emotional spikes of motivation or temporary energy. It is formed through the daily choice to act even when conditions are not favorable. When you take action during discomfort, you are sending a clear message to yourself that effort is required regardless of how you feel. This message builds internal stability. The brain starts to associate action with principle instead of preference. You no longer need ideal moments to begin. You move when it is time. Every time you choose the harder path, you write a line in the story of your own resilience. The days you move forward despite the weight in your chest are the very days that carve the strongest parts of you. Weakness whispers for delay. Strength speaks in quiet, steady steps. By acting in less than perfect situations, you create a tighter link between your thoughts and your behavior. This removes the delay between knowing and doing. Each time you move through resistance, you teach yourself that obstacles are part of the process, not a reason to stop. The more you act in discomfort, the less power discomfort holds. You no longer see it as a barrier. You recognize it as training. The truth is, comfort never truly satisfies. It numbs for a moment, then leaves you emptier than before. But discomfort, embraced willingly, plants seeds. Seeds that grow into patience, courage, and control. Every challenge accepted is a promise kept to your future self. Excuses will always be present. They will arrive in different forms depending on the day. Sometimes they appear as tiredness, sometimes as fear, sometimes as clever logic that tells you rest is the better option. The environment will always offer these options. There will always be something easier, something quicker, something more pleasant. These are constant. What changes is your internal policy. You do not have to fight each excuse. You only need to hold to your standard. Once the standard is clear, decision-making becomes simple. If your standard is action, then emotion does not dictate behavior. If your standard is follow-through, then you remove the habit of negotiation. And this is the quiet freedom of discipline. To act without endless debate, to move without asking for permission from your mood. It is the art of stepping forward while doubt still lingers behind you. You no longer need to argue with your thoughts. The structure has already been chosen. You are not deciding whether to act. You are already committed to the action. This way of training the mind is not punishment. It is guidance. It teaches clarity through repetition. It makes effort familiar. Over time, the friction fades and is replaced with rhythm. You learn to move with purpose rather than delay. Your time and energy are no longer drained by hesitation. They are directed toward execution. A person who removes excuses becomes reliable. They speak less about goals and show more through their choices. They do not depend on reminders or external pressure. They operate from within. They become like a stone in the river, unmoved by the rushing current around them, steady because they know their place and their purpose. In such steadiness, life's chaos loses its power to pull them away. Their schedule is built around intention, not convenience. They speak clearly. They act without hesitation. They adjust when needed, but never abandon the task without reason. This is the point where real strength begins. It is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to continue through it. When excuses are removed, all that remains is what needs to be done. From this place, you begin to build a life that reflects discipline, responsibility, and internal order. This is how you stop being soft. This is how you begin to build yourself into someone durable, useful, and consistent. Comfort is a slow decay. It reduces urgency. It weakens instinct. It dulls awareness. When life becomes too easy, the mind loses sharpness and the body loses strength. The Stoics understood this and trained against it. They exposed themselves to discomfort on purpose. They wanted to prepare for difficulty before it arrived. They saw comfort as a hidden threat, one that could take away the ability to endure. Voluntary discomfort was a common part of Stoic practice. They did not wait for hardship to come to them. They created small challenges daily. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that luxury weakens the soul. Seneca advised sleeping on the ground, wearing rough clothing, and eating cheap food. These exercises had a purpose. They removed fear by making discomfort familiar. The more you expose yourself to difficulty, the less it controls you. The mind adapts to what it repeats. And yet, in our time, comfort has been disguised as progress. We are told that convenience is victory, that ease is the highest form of living. But the Stoic would see this as a dangerous illusion, because a life without friction is a life without growth. If you live in comfort, your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Tasks begin to feel overwhelming. Delays become intolerable. Minor problems feel like major threats. On the other hand, if you train through discomfort, you gain capacity. You stop fearing effort. You stop avoiding resistance. You become harder to disturb and more capable under pressure. Think of the warrior who sharpens his blade in peace so that he may wield it in war. The training is not glamorous. It is often repetitive, even dull. But when the storm comes, the blade is ready, and so is he. Intentional discomfort today does not need to be extreme. It might look like waking up earlier than usual, eating a plain meal without seasoning, or walking when it would be easier to drive. It might mean working in silence instead of using background noise. It can be something as simple as finishing a task in one sitting instead of splitting it up. These small acts recalibrate the nervous system. They remind the body and mind that ease is not required. Every time you choose the more difficult option, you strengthen your response to challenge. You stop relying on your surroundings to dictate your best behavior. You build a mindset that can function under pressure without constant support or encouragement. This is where true resilience grows, not in moments of applause, but in the quiet grind no one else sees. You become your own source of momentum, independent of praise or perfect conditions. This habit trains the nervous system to remain steady even when conditions shift. It also reinforces a clear internal message. Difficulty is part of life, and it does not prevent forward movement. By acting through resistance, you build tolerance for stress. You become familiar with effort that produces no immediate reward. This creates durable confidence. Confidence that cannot be shaken by changing weather, shifting opinions, or sudden setbacks. It is the kind of confidence that allows you to walk into the unknown with steady breath. You know you can follow through without applause. You know you can continue without external approval. These small actions build internal stability. They teach the mind that energy comes from commitment, not comfort. Training through discomfort is deliberate. It is structured. It is not harsh discipline for its own sake. It is repetition designed to replace reactivity with clarity. Each situation where friction is present becomes a rehearsal. You test how you respond. You study your reactions. You see where your discipline fails and where it holds. And when it fails, you do not run. You learn. You adjust. You step back in again. Because for the Stoic, failure in training is not shame, it is information. Over time, these tests reveal progress. You develop steadiness in situations that once triggered avoidance. Using discomfort this way helps the mind to separate feeling from behavior. You feel the strain, but you still act. You experience fatigue, but you still engage. You notice the resistance, but you do not withdraw. This process makes effort normal. It builds a direct path between intention and execution. Growth happens in moments of tension. That tension demands a clear decision. You either give in or you continue. Each time you continue, you expand your capacity. Your ability to endure becomes part of your identity. And once endurance is part of who you are, the world changes shape. Obstacles turn into opportunities. Pressure becomes practice. What once caused hesitation now becomes familiar. You do not wait for things to get easier. You bring yourself up to meet them. Eventually, comfort loses its grip. It no longer dictates your actions. You can function in any setting because your strength is internal. You adjust your pace, not your standard. You do what is necessary without needing perfect motivation. 2. Emotions are part of human experience. They signal internal states, reflect values, and highlight where attention is needed. The Stoics did not seek to erase emotion. They developed the ability to observe emotion without letting it override thought. This requires training the mind to pause, evaluate, and respond in alignment with principle rather than impulse. Unchecked emotion creates instability. Anger narrows vision. Fear stalls movement. Desire pulls attention away from what matters. When emotions dominate behavior, decisions become inconsistent. The Stoic works to create space between feeling and action. This space allows reason to function. It restores order to the mind, and in that space, clarity breathes. It is the pause between the lightning and the thunder. The moment where you choose whether to burn or to illuminate. Marcus Aurelius described the ideal mind as a fortress. He aimed to preserve calm within even when the world around him was chaotic. He ruled an empire during war, illness, and betrayal. Yet he focused each day on his inner state. He wrote reminders to remain steady, to return to reason, and to master the urge to lash out or collapse under stress. The Stoic studies emotion without judgment. When anger appears, they look at its cause. When fear arises, they examine the belief behind it. This does not mean avoiding what is felt. It means facing it directly and asking whether it leads toward strength or away from it. Emotions become teachers when handled with awareness. The untrained mind lets emotion hold the pen that writes its story. The trained mind holds the pen itself and uses emotion as ink, not as the author. Developing this awareness begins with pause. When emotion starts to rise, slow the process. Take a single breath before acting. Step back from the urge to respond immediately. This is not avoidance. It is structure. The pause breaks the automatic link between emotion and behavior. It restores choice. Journaling supports this process. Write down what you feel without filtering it. Ask where the emotion came from. Identify what triggered it and whether it fits with the reality of the situation. Then ask what behavior would be most consistent with your values. This creates clarity. Over time, the practice reduces confusion and sharpens perception. The goal is not to remove emotion. The goal is to understand it and reduce its control over action. When emotions become signals rather than commands, they lose their disruptive power. Anger becomes a cue to investigate boundaries. Fear becomes a prompt to assess risk clearly. Desire becomes a chance to examine priorities. The mind trained in this way gains stability. It holds its form under pressure. It does not chase every reaction. It does not spiral into overthinking or overreacting. It stays grounded in what can be controlled: thoughts, choices, and effort. And there is a rare kind of strength in that grounding, a weight that keeps you steady while others are tossed by the waves. This kind of mind responds with intention. It does not drift or collapse in moments of stress. A person who gains control over their emotions becomes steady in every environment. They remain composed during conflict and stable under pressure. They do not inflame difficult situations. They help contain them. When others are reactive, they remain clear. This clarity reduces tension and prevents unnecessary escalation. Their actions are measured, deliberate, and anchored in thought rather than mood. Their ability to remain calm is not an accident. It is built through continuous effort. They train themselves daily to observe rather than react. They review their behavior and identify emotional patterns. They reflect after conversations during solitude and in moments of tension. Over time, this repetition forms a stable core. And from that core, decisions grow straight, like the trunk of a tree that has weathered many storms. Their presence becomes grounded and others begin to sense that stability. This presence influences the environment. People respond to calm with respect. They trust the person who does not shift with every emotion. This builds credibility. It builds quiet authority. Those who remain steady become dependable. In crisis, they are looked to for guidance. In difficulty, they are the ones who remain useful. Their reliability is a result of their self-regulation. This presence is not based on surface appearance. It is earned through the repeated choice to pause before speaking, to examine before acting, and to hold steady under pressure. The person develops self-trust through repetition. They know how they will behave in challenge because they have trained for it. This makes their responses less dependent on external validation. Emotional resilience is formed in these small decisions. It is not a single event, but a process of shaping behavior over time. The Stoic returns again and again to the same principles. They do not need new methods. And so the mind becomes like a still lake, reflecting everything clearly, disturbed by nothing for long. These habits shape the internal world. They protect the mind from being pulled in every direction. When this training becomes part of daily life, the person no longer relies on ideal conditions to stay balanced. They carry their clarity with them. Strength develops through consistent structure. It does not appear through luck or bursts of energy. It is created by the repetition of specific actions over time. The Stoics recognize that daily habits shape long-term character. What you do regularly becomes what you rely on in moments of pressure. If your actions are deliberate, your responses will be deliberate. If your actions are reactive, your responses will follow the same pattern. Discipline is not based on natural talent. It is a choice that is made daily. Epictetus told his students that living with principle requires the same seriousness as athletic training. Athletes do not train when they feel like it. They train because their identity demands it. Philosophical practice follows the same idea. To live well, you need to act with purpose. That purpose is expressed through routine. Discipline means creating clear standards for yourself. These standards are not based on mood. They are not adjusted for convenience. They hold firm across good days and bad. Discipline is doing what is necessary even when the mind resists. It is the ability to complete small tasks without needing motivation. And this is where greatness hides, in the unremarkable acts done again and again until they become second nature. This consistency is what builds reliability. A daily routine helps remove decision fatigue. It provides structure that supports mental clarity. When basic behaviors are scheduled and repeated, they free mental energy for harder problems. This is why the Stoics valued planning. Morning reflections prepared them for the day. Evening reviews allowed them to learn from it. They kept their days simple so their minds could stay focused. Creating a routine does not require extreme changes. It begins with one action. That action must be done every day without exception. It might be waking up at a set time, reading a Stoic passage, or journaling for 5 minutes. The goal is to keep the habit unbroken. Once that action is automatic, another is added. This slow, steady layering creates a stable daily rhythm. Discipline grows not in sudden leaps, but in these quiet layers of commitment. Like rings in a tree trunk, they form over years until strength is no longer something you reach for. It is something you are. Removing distractions is also part of building discipline. A routine is not only about what you add, it is also about what you subtract. Each distraction you eliminate makes it easier to focus. This might mean turning off unnecessary notifications, limiting media, or simplifying your environment. These small steps reduce friction. They create conditions where follow-through becomes natural. Intensity fades, reliability remains. Discipline is measured by how often you return to the task, not how dramatic your effort looks. Every completed repetition reinforces identity. Each act of follow-through confirms your direction. These small confirmations build strength over time, and soon your mind will no longer ask whether you can. It will simply begin, because starting has become part of your nature. The mind begins to trust your decisions. Doubt is reduced. Internal conflict weakens. Eventually, discipline becomes a natural part of how you carry yourself. It shows in how you speak, how you move, how you start your day, and how you follow through on your tasks. You no longer waste time deciding whether to act. The decision is already part of your system. You move from planning into execution with little resistance. This lowers the mental effort spent on hesitation. You preserve energy for the task instead of losing it to internal debate. This stability simplifies your life. When you eliminate the habit of second-guessing, you also eliminate the stress that comes with it. You stop feeling guilty for what you avoid. You stop postponing actions that repeat in your mind. You develop a sense of quiet confidence because you know what is expected of you and you follow through. Quiet confidence is the kind that speaks without words, the kind others feel when they see you move with purpose. Your sense of identity becomes clearer because your behavior aligns with your values. This type of consistency frees the mind. When your daily routine is anchored by reliable habits, you can focus more deeply on things that matter. You are no longer pulled in multiple directions. You have fewer distractions to manage and fewer decisions to negotiate. This allows for higher quality effort. You can work longer, stay present, and rest without unfinished tasks lingering in your thoughts. The Stoic builds this kind of order through deliberate repetition. They focus on what can be controlled. They keep their habits simple and consistent. They review their days and refine their actions. Over time, these repetitions form structure. That structure becomes the foundation of reliability both in private and in public. Others notice the consistency. Trust grows. Respect follows, and in the end, discipline ceases to be something you do. It becomes the very shape of your life. Desire is often the beginning of suffering. The Stoics observe that craving pulls the mind out of balance. When desire takes control, reason is weakened. You begin to chase temporary relief instead of long-term strength. The more you pursue comfort without limit, the more dependent you become on it. This weakens both character and peace of mind. Seneca wrote that the person who needs little is richest. He warned that luxury creates false needs. Each indulgence added to your lifestyle becomes a new vulnerability. When the object of desire is taken away, it causes agitation. When it is fulfilled, it brings only short-lived relief. The cycle repeats. The Stoic aims to break that cycle by reducing unnecessary wants. Desire shows itself in many forms. It may be the need for validation, the urge to climb social ranks, or the drive to experience quick hits of pleasure. These can include substances like alcohol or nicotine, digital temptations like explicit material, or habits like scrolling endlessly to avoid boredom. The more you feed these hungers, the louder they become. The more you resist them, the clearer your voice of reason grows. Some cravings are linked to the body, hunger or physical comfort. Others are psychological, linked to attention, novelty, or reassurance. These desires can seem harmless in isolation, but when they shape your decisions, they reduce your independence. When the mind becomes trained to seek out pleasure automatically, it starts outsourcing direction. You begin to respond to what feels good instead of what is right. This creates dependency. Your sense of peace becomes attached to objects, experiences, or outcomes that are outside your control. If they are unavailable, stress increases. If they are removed, identity feels threatened. This is how unchecked desire leads to suffering. The Stoic does not ignore desire. They examine it carefully. They pause when it arises and observe its structure. They question where it originated and whether it is built on truth or habit. Most cravings are learned. They are reinforced by repetition and external influence. By slowing down and asking whether something is truly necessary, the Stoic regains agency. They do not silence the craving through force. They reduce its weight by bringing attention to it, and in that moment of pause they remind themselves not all hungers deserve to be fed. Desires often emerge from social conditioning. Advertisements, trends, and digital media feed new wants into the mind constantly. Without discipline, these wants accumulate and become standards. They are not questioned, they are followed. This weakens autonomy. A person who does not examine desire becomes reactive and scattered. Their energy is divided across too many pursuits. The Stoic simplifies. They choose fewer inputs and deeper attention. They reduce noise so they can hear their own judgment clearly. Enjoying simple things is part of this training. A basic meal teaches that flavor is not the measure of satisfaction. A quiet walk shows that presence does not require stimulation. Finishing a task proves that meaning is found in completion, not in applause. These moments build a calm mind, a mind that can say enough and mean it. To strengthen this practice, the Stoic uses fasting, not only from food, but from comfort in general. Take time away from pleasure on purpose. Delay gratification even when it's within reach. Replace convenience with effort occasionally. Each fast is a reminder that comfort is not essential. It is optional. The body can function without instant pleasure. The mind can hold focus without escape. These are skills, and they improve with repetition. With each act of discipline, you take control of your choices. Each time you say no to a craving, you make your reasoning stronger than your impulse. The desire may still appear, but you understand it better. You are not confused by it. You know it will pass. You observe it without giving it control. This increases your ability to hold your ground. You build patience through restraint. You build mental endurance by choosing principles over comfort. These repeated moments of self-regulation strengthen your self-trust. You begin to rely on your ability to stay committed. The more you act with restraint, the more your identity becomes linked to control instead of craving. And when control becomes part of your identity, temptation loses its sharpness. Each time you act with discipline, you prove to yourself that you are capable of managing desire rather than being directed by it. This makes your confidence more stable. It is not based on appearance or achievement. It is based on a quiet understanding that you can say no when needed. The constant need for satisfaction begins to fade. You do not look for comfort in every moment. You stop chasing entertainment as a way to avoid discomfort. You are more at ease in silence, in stillness, in effort without reward. Your sense of peace begins to come from structure rather than escape. You begin to feel aligned, not pulled in multiple directions. This internal alignment reduces anxiety. When you are no longer driven by constant desire, your reactions become slower, more thoughtful, and more intentional. You are less thrown off by changes. You can accept delay without agitation. You are less dependent on external approval, physical pleasures, or instant outcomes. This creates stability. You become harder to manipulate. You are less influenced by marketing, peer pressure, or emotional appeal. Your decisions reflect clarity. You begin to choose what supports long-term strength, not what gives short-term relief, and in that choice, freedom quietly returns. Attention is the foundation of self-control. Where your attention goes, your actions follow. If your mind is scattered, your energy will be scattered. The Stoics trained their focus the way others trained strength. They gave attention only to what was useful, real, and within their power. Anything else was dismissed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often to return to the present moment. He wrote about staying within the limits of the task at hand, not drifting into imagination or fear about the future. This mental discipline allowed him to lead an empire during crisis without being mentally overwhelmed. And in a world that constantly pulls you toward noise, the ability to return to the present is not just a skill, it is a form of quiet rebellion. Today's world is built to steal your attention. Digital platforms compete for every second. Information overload keeps the mind busy but unfocused. The cost is clarity. The mind that is always distracted forgets what it was trying to do. It reacts to noise instead of responding with purpose. The Stoic solution is to take control of inputs. Decide what earns your attention. Design your environment to reduce interruption. Remove non-essential media. Limit your exposure to opinion and noise. And above all, remember that every distraction carries a hidden cost. A piece of your life you will not get back. Replace scattered consumption with deliberate reflection. Start small. Create blocks of time where your phone is off. Set fixed times to check messages or social feeds. Read slowly and with focus. Write without checking notifications. These are basic steps, but they help rebuild attention span. Stoics trained the mind to return to the present. When distracted, they did not criticize themselves. They returned quietly and resumed the task. This builds mental discipline over time. Discipline of attention is like the sharpening of a blade, done carefully, consistently, until the edge can cut through noise without effort. Repetition creates focus. Focus creates peace. Attention is a limited resource. Where you direct it shapes your day. Where you direct it consistently shapes your life. Mastering attention is a key step toward mastering the self. Without it, no other strength can be sustained. And in mastering your attention, you reclaim the helm of your own ship, steering through the storm instead of drifting wherever the wind blows. Time is your most limited resource. Once lost, it cannot be regained. The Stoics viewed wasted time as a moral failure. Seneca wrote that people guard their property but waste their time carelessly, as if they can always get more. Every distraction, every delay, every unnecessary indulgence costs time. The Stoic sees these costs clearly. They do not fill the day with motion and call it progress. They ask whether each action matters, whether it supports their values, whether it leads toward the person they aim to become. And they know the true thief of life is not tragedy, but the slow, unnoticed loss of days spent on what does not matter. The Stoic treats time as a craftsman treats his finest material, measuring twice before cutting once, refusing to waste even the smallest piece. Each hour is an irreplaceable fragment of existence, a chance to shape something worthy. Time must be accounted for. You do this by reviewing your day and planning with intention. You decide what deserves your energy and when it should be given. You remove habits that drain without return. You stop letting others dictate your time with demands that don't align with your priorities. Use blocks of focused effort. Create boundaries around your day. Protect mornings. Use evenings for review. Let routine act as a container for your energy. This keeps your effort from spilling in every direction. A day without direction is like a ship without a rudder. It will move, but never toward where you wish to go. The Stoic refuses to let their schedule be shaped entirely by others. They guard the hours as a warrior guards his flank. Because one breach can unravel the whole line, they understand that surrendering time is surrendering control over life itself. To respect time is to be ruthless with distractions. It means saying no to what feels urgent but is not important. It means closing doors on opportunities that pull you away from your purpose. This discipline might look cold to others, but it is actually the highest form of self-respect. Wasting time creates regret. Protecting it builds confidence. You begin to trust how you spend your day. You begin to see progress that is real. This consistency builds identity. It replaces drifting with direction. And when you can look back at your week and know that each hour was placed with intention, you will feel the rare satisfaction of a life that is not leaking away unnoticed. The Stoic knows that tomorrow is never promised, and so they do not treat today as disposable. They live as if each day is a complete life in miniature. And in doing so, they remove the need to beg for more time later. Respecting time is not about being busy. It is about being deliberate. You know what matters, and you act accordingly. That is what gives time its value. For the Stoic, every hour is a piece of life itself. To waste it is to chip away at your own existence. To guard it is to honor the gift you've been given. And when you have mastered the art of protecting your time, you have mastered the art of protecting your life. Approval seeking weakens judgment. When you need permission to act, you place your future in the hands of others. The Stoics saw this as dangerous. It made your peace conditional and your character unstable. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that praise adds nothing to a thing's value. An action is either right or it is not. How others respond does not change its worth. Relying on praise is like chasing shadows, always moving, never solid. And the man who spends his life chasing shadows will never see the sun behind him. The Stoic builds independence by acting from principle. They decide what is good, then do it. They listen to criticism, but they do not let it govern them. They are polite but not dependent on agreement. This practice requires honesty. You must know why you do what you do. You must be clear on your values. Without that clarity, you will drift into pleasing everyone and pleasing no one. The crowd's approval is a tide. It will rise for you today and pull away from you tomorrow. Build your footing on the shore, and you will be carried away with it. Build it on stone, and you will remain. To apply this, speak less about what you plan to do. Do it. Let your actions speak. Stop asking for validation before you move. Take small steps without announcing them. Let your behavior reflect your convictions. This way, your life becomes a declaration, not in words, but in the steady pattern of your conduct. The Stoic does not reject praise. They simply do not require it to stay on course. They keep their compass internal so that even in the noise of the world, their direction remains steady. They understand that the pursuit of approval is a trap. For in trying to please everyone, you will stand for nothing. But when you act from principle, the approval that comes is not purchased at the cost of your soul. And when the crowd turns, as crowds always do, you will still be walking in the same direction, not because they approve, but because you know it is right. The one who is free from the need for applause is free to act with clarity, free to make decisions quickly, and free to remain himself when others lose themselves. True strength is not found in the cheers of others, but in the silence you can hold without fear. Responsibility cannot be avoided without cost. The longer you delay facing it, the more complex and burdensome it becomes. Each day of avoidance increases the weight. Each missed decision builds more consequences. The Stoic addresses responsibility early. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They begin with what is in front of them. They understand that waiting wastes time and erodes readiness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that time was passing quickly. He wrote that action is needed now, not later. He viewed hesitation as a form of self-abandonment. Life moves forward whether you act or not. The Stoic recognizes this. They do not pass off responsibility when they are capable of meeting it. They take ownership without needing to be told. And in ownership, they find a deep kind of freedom. For nothing weighs heavier than the tasks you pretend are not yours. Responsibility is a builder of inner structure. It creates alignment between your actions and your role. When you accept responsibility for your behavior, your tasks, and your influence in a situation, you gain clarity. It becomes easier to see what belongs to you and what does not. You stop wasting energy trying to control what is outside your reach. Instead, you focus fully on what is within your command. This focus brings form to your life. Each decision gains purpose. Each task fits into a larger structure. You understand what needs to be done and why it matters. Your priorities become clearer. You begin to move with direction rather than drift between obligations. You build consistency by acting on what is required of you, not just what feels easy in the moment. The tendency to avoid responsibility often comes from the discomfort it creates. It demands energy, attention, and accountability. It often arrives with uncertainty. You may not know how things will turn out. You may fear making the wrong move, but the longer you wait, the more complicated things become. Delayed decisions invite confusion. Ignored duties accumulate into stress over time. This creates a life filled with loose ends and unspoken tension. The Stoic trains to carry this weight. They understand that pressure refines character. They do not seek it out for suffering's sake, but they are willing to step into it to gain strength. They act while others wait. They respond while others retreat. They grow by doing what must be done, not what is most comfortable. And with each act of responsibility, they add another stone to the foundation they stand on, a foundation that will not crack when life leans its full weight upon it. To live this way is to see responsibility not as a burden, but as proof that you are capable. The more you carry, the stronger you become, provided you carry it with intention, not resentment. A life built on avoided duties will crumble when pressure comes. A life built on fulfilled duties will stand, unshaken. Words fade, actions remain. Over time, talk loses power if it is not supported by conduct. The Stoic understands this. They focus on living in a way that teaches through example. Their life is their statement. Their behavior is their message. They do not rely on persuasion. They show their values through repetition. Their consistency becomes a model that others observe even without being told to. Living this way requires control and consistency. You cannot speak of strength while practicing weakness. You cannot claim discipline while living in disorder. Your actions must align with what you claim to value. If you believe in clarity, your decisions must reflect it. If you believe in endurance, your work must prove it. Each repeated behavior either reinforces your values or contradicts them. The Stoic does not assume they will always meet their standard. They fall short at times. When they do, they reflect honestly, correct course, and move forward. They do not shift blame or invent explanations. They improve, and that quiet act of correction, unseen by most, is where true character is shaped. This process of self-correction reinforces their commitment. It strengthens their foundation. They gain clarity through adjustment. This pattern of discipline becomes a model that others can learn from, even in silence. A life of example does not depend on being seen. The work continues when no one is watching. The principles hold even when they are not praised. Showing up, completing tasks, telling the truth, staying composed. These habits shape a person's identity. Over time, others take note. people learn more from what is repeated than what is announced. They trust patterns. They follow steadiness. Influence does not begin with the world. It begins with yourself. You shape others only after you have shaped your own conduct. You lead best when you do not need to. When you uphold your own standards without needing reminders, your presence begins to carry more weight. It becomes clear that you are acting from conviction, not for attention. This kind of leadership does not require title or recognition. It is built gradually through repeated decisions. Presence is earned by consistency. Direction is maintained through deliberate action. The Stoic moves first by choice. They begin before the crowd does. They take what is theirs and follow through. They do not waste time explaining what they plan to do. They put effort into execution. And when the world grows loud and restless, their quiet, steady movement becomes a lighthouse, guiding without shouting, leading without pushing. Their character is built through follow-through, not performance. When difficulty increases, they do not withdraw. They act within their principles. That stability earns trust. Over time, others come to rely on it, not because it was demanded, but because it was demonstrated. Trust grows through behavior that remains steady across time. When others see that you respond the same way in calm and in conflict, they begin to depend on your posture. When people face uncertainty, they look to those who do not shift with pressure. Without needing to explain your philosophy, you become an example of it. When others struggle with confusion, they notice your structure. It gives them something to consider. This is leadership through behavior, measured, repeatable, and earned. Living this way creates more than order. It reduces wasted energy. You do not need to keep defending your beliefs when your actions already confirm them. In a crisis, your behavior does not become exaggerated. It becomes exact. In ordinary moments, you stay consistent. That dependability is what people begin to look for. And when others hesitate, you continue the task. You finish what you begin. This becomes a point of reference for others who are unsure. You lead by maintaining your direction while the environment shifts. You follow your principles in all conditions. You stay disciplined when no one is watching. You hold the same standard whether you are praised or ignored. There is no division between your values and your actions. What you believe shows up in your daily decisions. Your conduct remains stable under pressure. This creates a pattern that others learn from without needing to be told. They see that the right choice is possible without argument. They see that strength is compatible with restraint. You keep your structure intact through simplicity. You act clearly. You avoid unnecessary attention. You reduce emotional noise by staying focused on your responsibilities. This steady posture earns respect. People rely on your consistency because it is visible over time. They trust your judgment because it is based on repeated discipline, not sudden performance. And in a world swayed by impulse, the one who lives by principle will always stand out, not for their noise, but for their unshakable silence.